Hey there, homeschool reading community. Welcome to this Facebook Live about what to do when your child isn't confident to read. Today, I want to talk about that frustration and struggle that happens when our kids are just not confident in their abilities to read, or they aren't getting it and they're getting frustrated. You can let me know in the comments of this video. Let me know if you can relate to any of this. We talked about kids who are complaining or refusing to read out loud. This is a super common thing that happens when our kids aren't confident to read. They might be whining when it's time to practice reading. They might be begging to do anything else, or sometimes they're just telling us that they can't do it or that they hate reading and they are just frustrated and don't even want to try. Maybe you can relate to that. Or maybe you can relate to this one. Maybe your child, instead of trying to sound out the words and trying to figure it out, is just giving up and guessing. That's another one that's really common that happens when kids are not confident in their ability to read. If you can relate to that, let me know in the chat. Let me know if you have a child that's doing any of those things. I'm excited to talk about that today and to talk about some strategies that we can use as parents to really encourage our kids to become confident readers. Because ultimately, we need our kids not only to be capable readers, but also to be confident in their ability and to enjoy what they're doing. Because if they can read, but they're not confident in it, then they're still not going to want to, right? And so today in our class, we're going to be talking about that. Jennifer says, yep, oldest would rather guess than figure it out. Yeah, Jennifer, I know that you are not alone in that. There are a lot of kiddos out there who are in the same boat. And some of it can happen sometimes because of the way that we're teaching them, or it can happen just because of this lack of confidence. It really depends on the kiddo and their experience. Jennifer says, yep, went through all of that just this morning, LOL. Oh my gosh, Jennifer, yeah. Um, it's really common. There are so many kids out there that just are not confident in their ability to read, and they just are so frustrated and they're so over it. And eventually, over time, it can become this attitude that just starts even before you start teaching them. It's like they've given up before you've even started. Kimberly says, same here. Yeah, definitely. It's like this attitude that starts before we've even started, and we get to the point where our kids aren't even giving it a chance. We say the word reading and they get really frustrated and run the other way. I am going through something similar with my daughter with math actually right now. We had a number of frustrating math lessons in a row, and so I'm really having to backpedal and try to get her to like math again before we can even really learn math, because we're at the point where she's so closed-minded about even wanting to do math that it isn't I can't even start to teach her. So we're taking a step back and we're really focusing on some different things, and it's going better. But this confidence loss in our kids and this confidence trap is something that is really prevalent, unfortunately, when we're teaching our kids how to read, and really challenging because it really closes our kids' minds off to being able to read and to being able to learn. So I want to talk about 3 strategies that we can do today if our kids are not feeling confident in their ability to read, or are guessing, or are telling us that they can't do it, or they hate reading, or are whining when it's time to practice, that will really help to unlock that and to set our kids up for success. And the first thing that I want to talk about is that confidence really starts with connection with us. Our kids' confidence starts with our connection with us. And if you have seen a baby, then you have probably seen this because it's super obvious in babies, right? Whenever a baby experiences a new situation where they're not sure how to respond, what is their first response? Often they'll look to the adult that they trust to see how they should respond. So if you've ever seen a baby, or like a small child, a toddler who's learning how to walk, and they fall over and then they look at you like, should I be hurt? Should I be concerned? Should I cry? And they're looking to you for the response. And if you're very positive and you say, uh-oh, let's stand back up, then your child will take that on and they will stand right back up and start again. And if your child sees you freak out and get nervous, then they'll start crying. Can anybody relate to that? Have you seen your child do that? Let me know. Callie says, my son has a speech delay, but it's mainly pronunciation. I bought the Better Together curriculum because the way you have it is almost the same way that they are teaching him its speech. But he gets so frustrated at himself and wants to give up. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting, Kelly, how speech is tied to reading, because when our kids are, especially with pronunciation, like you said, when our kids are pronouncing the words or the sounds wrong, often that means that they're also hearing them wrong in their heads. And we really need our kids to be able to hear the sounds correctly in order to get them to blend them correctly and be able to read them correctly too. So that's super, super important when we're teaching our kids to read. And so it's really important that we focus on almost exactly those speech sounds, just like a speech language pathologist or somebody in speech would teach them, so that we make sure that our kids are pronouncing them correctly and hearing them correctly. Yeah. So she said, Callie says it gets so frustrated at himself and wants to give up. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that too. If you want to email me, Callie, I can share some more specific strategies to Sarah at homeschoolingforhim.com. Send me an email. And we can chat more specifically about what it is that's getting him frustrated, and I can share some really specific strategies about how to help. That's the thing. He knows he's mispronouncing and catches it, but gets upset he can't correct himself. Yeah, yeah. I have my son is that way too. He's very much like, he wants to be able to do it correctly, and if he can't do it correctly, he doesn't want to do it at all. So, yeah, that's I know where he gets that perfectionism from. Um, so yeah, I have some grace for him for that for sure, but definitely a challenge to work through. Yeah. Email me if you want some specific strategies, though, for sure. Okay, so let's go back to talking about confidence and encouraging confidence with our kids, and talking about how that confidence starts with connection. So one of the things that we can do when we're teaching our kids to read is we can use a strategy that you might recognize if you're a teacher. It's called I do, we do, you do. And if you go to teacher school for any length of time, you've heard somebody talk about I do, we do, you do. And it's a strategy that teachers use to teach new concepts to their kids. So the idea is they start with I do, so the teacher does it so that the kids can see how it's supposed to be done, they model it. And then we do, so like they work together and do it, and like the teacher helps them do it. And then you do, so then the kid does it themselves and the teacher checks to see if they can do it. So if you think about how a class is structured, usually there's like a lecture first, right? I do, the teacher's telling you what you're supposed to know, and then you might have some practice problems to do in class, we do. So you're working through things together and the teacher's giving you some feedback and stuff, and then maybe you have some homework, you do, and you have to go and do those things on your own, and then you'll come back and see how you did and whether or not you learned it. And it's like a really basic strategy that a lot of teachers will use. But it's something that can really help as we're teaching our kids to read as well. Because with that connection piece, we need I do, we do, and you do to help our kids be successful. So I do starts with reading out loud to your child. And reading out loud to your child is a super important part of teaching them how to read. The more that we can read out loud to our kids, the research says the more that they'll enjoy reading, the more that they'll like books, the more that they'll be motivated to want to learn to read. This does have a limit though. Just reading out loud to our kids is not going to be enough for most kids to learn how to read. I went on a trip to Italy with my husband this past fall, 2 falls ago. Oh my gosh, has it been 2 years? It's been almost 2 years. Not last fall, but the fall before we went to Italy. And it was fantastic. And we went to an Italian bookstore. We didn't know it was a bookstore. We went in and we were like, oh my gosh, this looks like Barnes and Noble, but it's in Italian. Every book was in Italian. It was very cool. So we walked around, we looked in the bookstore. If I had spent 6 months sitting in that Italian bookstore listening to somebody read, would I have learned Italian? No, probably not, right? I didn't know any of the words. I wouldn't have been able to pick up those books and learn Italian just from hearing somebody read the books. I wouldn't have known what anything meant. And so just reading out loud is not enough for almost all of our kids to be able to teach them how to read, but it is important for the motivation piece and for the foundational skills that they need to know. And so it's really important that we're building our connection with our kids by reading out loud to them. We can also read out loud alongside of them. And this is one of my favorite strategies for teaching kids how to read. And it's one that I don't see anybody else using or teaching, and it's side by side reading. So when you're doing side by side reading, you're going to take turns reading pages with your child. And this is something that you can do when your child is learning to read to help them build confidence. And it's also something that you can do when your child is a little bit older to continue to reinforce reading with them. So Reading Better Together comes with books that are designed for this. I want to grab one and show you really quick. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. This is Frog's Missing Hat. This comes from week 7 of the curriculum. And this book is designed specifically for side-by-side reading, but if you do not have books like this, you can do this with a regular library book as well. So in this book, there are parent pages and there are child pages. And you can probably tell right away which one is which, right? So the left-hand side page over here that has all of the information and all of the details is the parent page. And these are really cool because they are designed to tell the story and give lots of details and make it interesting and move the plot forward. And then on the right-hand side over here, we have child pages, and these are designed for kids to be able to read just so that they only are seeing letters and sounds and words that they already know and have already practiced. So this is really important because we want to make sure that our kids are not seeing new words and new sounds for the first time when they get to books, because that's going to make them, it's going to encourage them to guess. And so we want to make sure that when they see those books that they are only seeing sounds that they already know and can sound out, so that we're giving them a chance to be able to be successful with that. So if you're picking library books to do this, make sure that everything in there is something that your child already knows. Side-by-side reading is awesome for building confidence because it limits the amount that our child has to read. Instead of handing them an entire decodable book and saying, read this entire thing, you can't even see the ending because you're going to have to turn a whole bunch of pages before you even get there. They can see the end of what it is that they have to read. They know that on this page, they only have to read, let's see, it's stuck together. There we go. They only have to read this much. And then when they get to the end of this word, they get to stop. They're done. They get a break. And they also get a built-in reinforcement as well, because they get to then listen to their parent read the entire next page. They get to get read aloud to and have a nice story time before they have to come back in and read another page. So it's a really great way to build connection with you and to help your kids build confidence through that connection. And that connection is really valuable. If you have never tried one of these side-by-side reading books and you would like to, there is a link in the description of the video. I'm going to see if I can put it in the comments. We'll see if it'll let me do that too. But there is a link in the description of the video where you can grab one. You can go get the Reading Better Together starter kit, and it has the very first book from the curriculum in there, and you can have that for free. That is my gift to you. Just go take it and try it with your child and let them have a successful experience reading a book. It's really powerful. Okay, so confidence really starts with connection, and as we are able to connect with our kids over books, that's where the confidence starts. Another really important thing to know about confidence is that competence builds confidence. We talked about this a little bit last week, but I really wanted to focus on it this week because I think it's so important and something that's really important for us to remember. So the more successful that our kids can be as readers, the more confidence they are going to have in their ability. And that starts with us intentionally teaching them how to read. And this sort of spiral of success is something that has been shown and been proven in research as well with kids and with learning. Kids can tell what they're good at, and if it's something that they're good at and something that they can do well and that they enjoy, they're naturally going to do more of it, which means they're going to get more practice, which means they're going to get better at it, which means they're going to get more confident in their skills, which means they're going to enjoy it more and they're going to want to practice more. And this is a spiral that we can get to start working towards us and for our kids if we can give them that initial success. So we just have to get them started and get them to see that they can read something, anything, any book with a cover and pages, which is why I love these side-by-side stories, because it gives our kids that first little taste of success in reading a book, and then it can start to motivate them to want to do more and try more. The more that they can see that they are good at reading, the more that they're going to want to do it and keep practicing it. And the better that they get at reading, the more confident they're going to be. Unfortunately, this spiral also works the other way. And when reading is hard and frustrating, and when it's been hard and frustrating for a lot of days in a row, then our kids are going to start to not enjoy it as much, not want to practice as much, and not feel as confident about it. And so when we were talking in the beginning about could you relate to this, and if it's happening on a regular basis or a daily basis, then you're going to want to stop and do kind of like a reset. And I always recommend that parents, if it's really a struggle, stop completely what you're doing for a week or even two and do sort of like a break and a reset in reading or in whatever subject is frustrating. So this is something that we just are working through in doing math with my daughter. We slowed way down. We took several days off. We switched and did something different for a few days just to sort of give her a break from the frustration. My goal was that at the beginning of the lesson, I didn't want her to start the lesson frustrated. And so we took some time off until that was the case and until sort of emotion levels had calmed down a little bit and frustrations had calmed down a little bit. And then once that had happened, then we started back in with something completely different. So I sat right next to her while she was working on her math. We did much shorter lessons. That's the key a lot of times for a lot of people. Often the lessons are too long, and so we did shorter lessons, and that really helped. And I really tried to make them fun. So I know that she absolutely loves to color, and so the very first math lesson when we went back to it was one that had this much math, just a little tiny bit, and then a whole ton of coloring that she had to do. It was like find the answer and then color the square to make this picture, that kind of a problem. And so there was a lot of coloring, and I really tried to tie in the activities that she enjoys and the things that really motivate her to make it more fun for her. So when you're restarting, you want to think about those kind of things as well. But in general, as our kids build more competence, as they get better at reading, they're going to build confidence as well. So as much as we can to be intentionally teaching them the skills that they need, those are the kinds of things that ultimately are going to help them build confidence for the long term. We can do these little tricks to get them to continue for a short period of time, things like making the lessons shorter or making them more fun or giving them the books to read. But ultimately, we need to be teaching our kids the skills. And that's what's really going to help them have the confidence long term. The last thing that I really wanted to just share today is just a reminder and an encouragement that our kids' confidence starts with us. And I think this is especially true for us as homeschool teachers. When our kids see us both as their parent and also as their teacher, it is so important that we are confident both in ourselves and in our kids. We need to be really confident as our kids' teacher, and we need to model the confidence that we want them to have ourselves. They need to be able to do it, and we need to be able to show them that we know they can do it. I know that at your deepest level, this is something that you already believe, right? You believe in your child more than anyone else on this earth does. That's why you're homeschooling them. And ultimately, there's nobody else that's going to go to bat for your child quite the way that you will. But when push comes to shove in the middle of that reading lesson, when you're so frustrated and you just don't want to read that reader for the 78th time in a row, and you can't figure out why they knew it yesterday and they just don't know it again today, and you're frustrated, that's when you need to show the confidence. That's when your child needs to be taking cues from you that they're going to get this, and that we're going to do it another day and you're going to get this. And they need to be taking cues from you that reading is doable, that reading is possible, that they can do it, and not cues from you that reading is hard or that you don't know what to do to teach them. So that starts, we need to make sure that we do know what to do and to say to teach our kids. And so you want to make sure that you have a resource supporting you that is going to set you up for success. And you want to really look for something that will make it easy for your child as much as you can. I always think as a parent that one of my most important jobs is to set my kids up for success as much as I can in every situation that they're in. And so sometimes that means planning ahead for me. That's why I often pack a backpack. That's why when my kids were little, I packed a diaper bag. If we were out somewhere, I wanted them to be successful. And so I knew that sometimes that meant they might need a snack, or sometimes that might meant they might need a change of clothes, or they might need some sort of extra something to do to keep them occupied if we had to stand in a line. And so if I was able to think ahead and plan and pack those things, I could set my child up for success and create an environment where they could be successful. And ultimately, reading works exactly the same way. Whenever I'm teaching my kids something, I always think that it's important for me to create an environment where my kids can be successful. And that means that I need to have the background knowledge myself to be able to teach it to them. So I was thinking about when my kids were potty trained because I was talking to a friend this week who's going through that process. And I remembered what it looked like before I started potty training my kids. You can let me know in the comments if you did this too. So I remember that I did a ton of research before I started potty training my kids. And I looked at what the different methods were that were out there and what the different options were and how to do it. And I read books and I listened to podcasts and I read blogs and I did all the things. And I ended up finding a method that I thought would work well with the way that my kids learn and the way that they're motivated. And we ended up buying a book and following it, and it worked, which was cool. Not instantly. We had our issues, but that was sort of the process that we went through. But before we started, I spent some time researching and trying to learn the things that I needed to know in order to really set my kids up for success with that experience. And I think that reading is exactly the same. It's so important for us to learn the information that we need to know as parents in order to be successful reading teachers for our kids. Reading is a really step-by-step process. There are specific steps that need to be taught in a certain order to really help our kids be the most successful with learning to read. And so that's why I always recommend that you get a curriculum for learning how to read. There are so many great freebies out there on the internet. There are lots of really fantastic resources that are great for teaching some of the individual pieces, but it's important that you have sort of a bigger plan for how those pieces are going to fit together. And so I always recommend that you look for a really good curriculum that's going to give you the information that you need in order to be successful as your child's teacher, and also that is going to lay everything out sequentially and step by step to make sure that your child doesn't miss anything. It's just like math. If your child misses one of the beginning steps in math, then when they get to the future steps that build on that step, they won't know what they're doing. They'll be frustrated and discouraged. And a lot of times they'll feel like they can't do it. And it's not that they can't do it. And it's not that they aren't great at math. It's just that they missed one of the steps and now they can't build on the step that they don't know. And fortunately or unfortunately, reading is the same way. And so it's just really important that we go through sequentially and that we get each of those steps for our kids. So if you would like help with this, I would love to help you. This is exactly what we do inside of Reading Better Together. I just got done doing a huge Facebook Live in the Reading Better Together curriculum group where we went into depth about how to teach multisyllable words and long vowels and silent letters and some of the skills and strategies that our kids will need to know in order to be able to do those things, and also the knowledge that we need to have as parents in order to teach that. And I think it's important that we have both pieces. We have not only the materials to be able to teach our kids, but also the knowledge for ourselves. And I love that within Reading Better Together, I can help with both. and you do get support and help for both. So I'm going to put a link. I think there's a link in the description of the video. I'm not sure, but I'm going to put a link in the comments as well where you can learn more about Reading Better Together. The curriculum is available now, so you can go and look at this link and learn more about the curriculum and grab a copy as well. And I would love to support you on your reading journey with your child. So I am not seeing questions in the comments. If you have questions about this, please feel free to type those in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know how it's going with your child as they are learning how to read. And of course, if you're watching the replay, please feel free to come back and leave your questions and comments throughout the week as well. I always love to go back and read those and hear how everybody is doing and how things are going with your child. And I would love to be able to answer those and to help support you as well. So feel free to put those in there as you are watching the replay or throughout the week, and I'll be back throughout the week to answer those as well. I will also be back in the group again next Wednesday at 3 o'clock with another live to talk about teaching your child how to read. I love doing these, and I would love to have some topic ideas. I think I'm going to put a post in the group with a poll to ask for topic ideas for Facebook Live so that I can make sure that these are covering some of the topics that you really would like to hear about that would be most helpful to you in teaching your child how to read. And so feel free to be thinking about those, or you can leave a topic idea, just post it right here in the comments of this video, and that would be helpful as well. I am finishing right now planning out the things I'm going to be talking about for the next couple months, so I would love to include the things that are the biggest struggles or challenges for you and your child as well, so that we can talk about those, because often the things that we're struggling with, we a lot of times can feel like we're alone, and the reality is that there are often many families that are struggling with the same things as us. So I would love to talk about those things in the group. Kimberly says, thanks for the encouragement. I'm dealing with dyslexia and making everything more difficult. That's a good idea. Yeah, we should have somebody come and chat about dyslexia specifically. That would be really fun. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let me look into that, Kimberly. I have a few people in mind that would be a good resource to come and talk specifically about dyslexia from a an expert in dyslexia sort of perspective. Let me see who I can find. I love that. Okay, yeah, but share some topic ideas, share your thoughts in the comments, and be on the lookout for the poll. And then I will be back in the group next Wednesday at 3 Eastern to share another Facebook Live with you. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video, which was recorded live in the Homeschool Reading Community Group. This is a free Facebook group where I share tips and advice about homeschooling and teaching reading. You'll also find community with other homeschool moms like you, plus freebies, giveaways, parties, and more. I would love for you to join us over at the Homeschool Reading Community. Make sure that you check out the link in the description of this video for all the details.